Thank you everyone for joining us today. Just want to first say that this meeting is being recorded. We're recording this session so that the contents can be made available for newsrooms who weren't able to attend today. My name's Courtney. You've probably seen millions of emails come from me, but I am the program manager of Newsmatch at INN. And for the rest of this session, I am going to pass the mic over to my colleagues at Google News Initiative and News Revenue Hub, who are going to really lead this conversation on how to optimize your newsletters to grow a loyal reader and donor base. Before we start, I quickly want to just highlight one of the main Newsmatch resources we have available is Newsmatch HQ. Just so you know, the recording and even the resources that we talk about in this webinar will all be curated and made available here. You can also find recordings to our past webinars, as well as tools, guides, links to sign up for one-on-ones are all made available on Newsmatch HQ at support.newsmatch.org. That's sort of my only housekeeping note today. And with that, I would like to pass the mic over to Anne Marie from News Revenue Hub to kick off today's session.
Thanks, Courtney. Hi, everyone. We see a lot of familiar names in the chat today, so good to see you all here, and welcome to everyone who's joined us today. The topic at hand, as Courtney already said, is growing loyalty and reader revenue through newsletters. And today we're going to hear from some experts from Google News Initiative and some of our excellent project managers from News Revenue Hub. So our agenda is very simple. We're going to first introduce and give a little bit of background about our two organizations, and you'll hear from the speakers themselves. Then we're going to share best practices as well as recommendations on what you should focus on for Newsmatch this year as you prepare for your campaign. And we'll end up with Q&A, and that can be about the topic at hand today or anything related to Newsmatch in general, because Courtney and Christina Shi, also of News Revenue Hub, are here to answer any specific Newsmatch program questions you might have. So with that, let me just give a little bit of background about News Revenue Hub. We are a nonprofit organization that helps newsrooms achieve financial sustainability by growing loyal audiences and developing reader revenue programs. We've been around since 2016, and we've been a proud Newsmatch training partner each year since then. We work with more than 70 newsrooms across the country, and as well as through cohorts and trainings like this throughout the industry, we've learned a lot, and we apply all of our learnings and strategy to sessions like this to help you all advance your digital fundraising capabilities. Our normal services consist of a tech stack and customized strategy around membership, reader revenue program development, and audience development. And we are here today to share our best practices with you. Our staff comes from newsrooms, a lot of nonprofit newsrooms all over the country, and we've been in your shoes ourselves running Newsmatch campaigns for small local newsrooms. So we've been there, and we want to help you all out. And in addition to sessions like this, we will be available for office hours leading up to and during Newsmatch, and you will hear more about that shortly. So in a nutshell, that's News Revenue Hub. And now we're going to hear a little bit about GNI before we dive into the topic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Rocchio, and I work with the GNI, and I'm on the News Consumer Insights team. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of background as to what the Digital Growth Program is. So essentially, our digital growth program that we've created is Google's effort to help small to mid-sized news organizations essentially succeed online through free playbooks, interactive exercises, digital workshops, and labs, essentially leveraging the best of Google, industry experts, and news publishers globally. My colleague Tina is actually also here, and she will be sharing upcoming events at the end of today's session. And then a little bit about News Consumer Insights as well. That is a tool that we have designed. It's a free analytics tool that you can sync with your Google Analytics data to better understand the audience that's coming to your site and how we segment that audience to better understand how to drive growth, either through engagement or revenue. Thanks so much, Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Nicole. Why don't you go ahead and introduce a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll hear from our project managers.
That'd be great. Okay, so I'll kick off introductions. As you know, my name is Nicole and I sit with the News Consumer Insights team specifically. I'm a lead there, a smaller team within the Google News Initiative. And yeah, I've been at Google now for about 3 years. And I will pass it off to the others to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alma Washington. I am a senior project manager at the News Revenue Hub. If you were at our last week's session, I was there as well. But in short, I work with our project managers to help, grow our organization's audience and membership programs. I've been at the hub for about 2 years and I really enjoy it. And I'm located in Raleigh, North Carolina, in case anyone was wondering.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stacy Fernandez. I am a project manager here at the News Revenue Hub, and I've been here for about a year. I come from the Texas Tribune, which is also a nonprofit newsroom. I covered breaking news and issues at the intersection of race and class. I also helped launch the Daily Orange's membership program, which is a college newsroom. And I think it's one of the first or only membership programs for a college newsroom. So little self-plug there. And I'm currently based in the Dominican Republic. And I will go ahead and hand things over to Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So we'll actually move to our next slide here to show a little bit about what the homepage of this News Consumer Insights tool is. So for those of you who are not familiar yet with the tool, and I would love to also hear if anyone on the line has already used it and engaged with it and like what your thoughts are on it. So essentially what we're looking at here is the homepage of NCI or News Consumer Insights. But what we look at is the segmentation of our reader base. So you'll see here it's broken up into 3 different segments. And Tina also will have the link that she can share with everyone if you'd like to go directly to the tool itself to look at it while we kind of talk about it. We talk about our segmentation of casual readers, loyal readers, and brand lovers. And those are the funnels that we pay attention to throughout this entire tool. Again, it syncs with your Google Analytics data, and the different reader segments are broken up by how frequently your visitors have come to the site. So casual readers are the first time in the last 30 days. Your loyal readers are 2 to 14 times in the last 30 days, and brand lovers are 15 times and plus. So essentially what we want to focus on is that what you really need to drive, like newsletters or engagement on your site are loyal readers, and then how we define those loyal readers in a segment to help continue them down to your brand lovers. Your brand lovers are those people that are part of your audience that are really going to engage or subscribe and donate, convert. Those are the ones that are most likely to do that, right? So what we want to do is focus on moving those casual readers down the funnel into our brand lovers. And most of the growth in subscriptions or subscribers comes from your newsletter strategy, which is what I'm here to focus more on today. And this is essentially what we focus on first when we're talking about our News Consumer Insights audit or within the tool itself. And so also when you go into the tool and you're looking through it, there will be a couple tabs. There will be reader engagement and reader revenue on that left-hand side. And when you go to reader engagement as well, it kind of, as you scroll through, there are a lot of different recommendations, but what I want to focus on today is specifically newsletter. And so if we actually go to the second slide, we can kind of see how exactly we can go to or grow our newsletter acquisition strategy. So here, what we do is essentially we highlight newsletter acquisition strategy first in our reviews. We've seen very consistently that users are subscribed to a newsletter are more loyal, more likely to come to your website more frequently, and definitely more likely to subscribe. And also in an increasing cookieless world, or kind of where we're headed, building relationships directly with your readers is really important. So newsletters allow you to create that open dialogue with your subscribers and deepen the relationship with personalized content that you would offer them, or at least understand what could get them excited and subscribing to your site. So who exactly do you push newsletter signups to? And just for an overview here on this slide, there are these 4 recommendations that we always start with to talk about newsletter acquisition strategy. So your newsletter signup prompt is easily discoverable. And so that is something, just making sure that when your user comes to your site, they don't have to search to figure out where to sign up for your newsletter, because most users aren't actually doing that. It's what we find when we actually show them that very obvious and visible sign up box that we're finding more users are actually then going to subscribe to your newsletter. And so it should just be, within your article page, you can have your newsletter box pop up maybe one paragraph or two paragraphs down. I also understand that that's sometimes where ads are. So then you just want to compare the conversion rate between newsletter subscription sign up, what that means to you versus like an ad that you could potentially be getting revenue from. And then focus also on certain different pieces. So for desktop specifically, we have more like inline structures or anchored formats for mobile. So it should essentially be able to be seen at all times. And when we're talking about who we want to push newsletter signups to, technically, the whole philosophy is that those who are super engaged, you might want to be a bit more aggressive with the way that you're asking them to sign up for certain things. And the way to do that or go about it, those that are essentially new to your site, let's segment them over in the anchor or lightbox space. And just as a side note, you don't want to use pop-ups. So what I would recommend is using overlays or a lightbox. And within our playbook, and hopefully Tina can add that in as I'm chatting here, the second page of our playbook within the newsletter site or section actually has an example of the overlay that I would be speaking about. But there can be a user experience cost associated, and some users don't necessarily like it, but we have seen that it shows a much better conversion rate to use the overlay. So you need inline or inline with overlay. Those are the two types that you kind of want to like focus on. And there are definitely a couple more like advanced options if you have the resources to do so. So inline could be the more basic option, and then Lightbox or Anchor is the most advanced format, both of which are explained in that playbook. And so kind of like that's what I would focus on specifically. And now heading back to like the 4 different pieces that we see here on the slide, after I've talked about that visibility and position, the second thing you want to consider or think about is reducing the number of fields. Essentially, like you want to ensure that you're only asking for information that you actually require. So not addresses or personal information that isn't necessarily needed, just the email address, because that's all you really need. Use autofill as well. Definitely make sure that you have autofill so that the user doesn't have to type out their entire email address. It's just one less point of friction to help you kind of like easily move through that piece to get them to subscribe. And essentially, like once you've been able to build the relationship with the user, you can ask for more information if needed. So next, we want to think about the look and feel of the newsletter sign up button. So ensure that the eye of the user is attracted to what you're presenting through contrasting backgrounds. So we found that using warmer colors, specifically like orange, yellow, red, are more likely to motivate people to click on that sign up button. You could also think about using rounded edges instead of straight edges for the box. It sounds very minute, but it's a detail that we've paid attention to. And so in doing so, it'll also help motivate people to click through the CTA and complete that sign up process. And then the last thing here that I want to mention is the personalizing that message. So really highlight why a user should sign up and explaining the value of the newsletter itself. Customizing the message essentially like based on what the newsletter is focused on, so that you know it will be resonating with the user. For example, if you have a sports section and letting them know that they can sign up specifically to receive baseball updates. That was a random sport that I just thought about at the top of my head, but or a specific team or something like that. Most users, when they see something that's just a tiny bit more personalized, especially when they're on the page that they're viewing and it's in conjunction with that, they're so much more likely to click, yeah, I would love to get those updates. Also, letting them know potentially when those updates would come through. So you'll get this update at 7 a.m. to your inbox every day, or you'll get this like closing out email at 5 p.m. every day. That is also something that users like to know because then they can expect something and rely on you. There's trust that's starting to be built between the both of you. And in an ideal world, you want everyone to see a newsletter. So I think that what we want to do is try to get everyone a newsletter, at least to begin with, and then kind of go from there. But finding newsletter subscribers, I don't want to make it sound easy because it is really hard. So first, you just want to figure that out. Make sure they see at least one newsletter, and then make sure you can verify that landing page so that you know which users are coming to your site. And then continue to build the rapport and figuring out ways to interact with them, either through surveying your readers, or just like asking them to like respond to some sort of prompt that you have for them on your site as well, because you want your users to know that you're listening to them. I've definitely been talking quite a bit. And so will have Tina hopefully link the playbook. I can't see the chat while I'm talking, but we'll make sure that the playbook is linked so that you can view that as well. But I will now pass it back to Anne-Marie to continue forward through our presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. Tina, did you want to speak to these resources now?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely do that. So hi, everyone. I'm Tina. I'm also from the Google News Initiative. We have a list of these related tools, trainings, and resources, and we've already shared them with Courtney. So she'll make all of these links available. But as Nicole mentioned, I've already included links for the News Consumer Insights as well as the playbook. You can also explore our news tagging guide, which is an additional tool that we provide for news publishers. And specifically for today's workshop, we also have a number of playbooks and workshops that talk about this exact subject. So if you're interested in learning more, you can definitely explore those resources. We also provided a quick list of all the resources from the Digital Growth Program.
Thank you, Tina and Nicole. Lots of good resources for everyone to reference for Newsmatch and beyond. And now I'm going to pass it over to Alma and Stacy.
Hello, everybody. Stacy here again. So last week, our Hub colleagues talked a little bit about, well, not a little bit, a lot of it about email acquisition. And we just wanted to give you a little bit of a refresher just to jog your memory and for anybody who wasn't here last week. So one of the most effective strategies that we like to use are calls to actions, which Nicole already mentioned, but we really want to hammer in two specific kinds of calls to actions, which are what we most use in our industry: email calls to actions and donation calls to actions. And the email ones are especially important because you want to really be growing that top of your funnel. You want to get as many people into your email so that you have a bigger audience to beg for money, ask for money, kindly ask people for donations later on when Newsmatch comes around. And like Nicole said, you want to make sure that that is as simple of a sign up as possible. Moving on to the next slide. We have a few site acquisition strategies listed here that you guys can take a look at, and two that we really want to hammer in on. Also reiterating what Nicole said, your donation and sign up buttons need to be as absolutely prominent as possible, using those bright colors so that it's standing out from the rest of your site. You don't want it to blend in. You want people's eyes to be drawn to those two things. And you also want to make sure that the copy that you use throughout your site is as engaging and as compelling as possible. Literally, like, everybody and their dog has a newsletter. I feel like I get updates every day from Substack telling me like another person in your email list like has a newsletter. So you want to figure out, or you want to make sure that you are getting people to sign up and really telling them like why you stand out from the crowd. Why is it that they should add this newsletter to their inbox when they already have a bunch of newsletters? So really honing in on that message. And next slide, please. So now that you've figured out how to get people on your email list, what do you do now? How do you keep them there, and how do you make the absolute best newsletter that you can make? So some of the tips that we will be talking about today, they won't just be helpful for Newsmatch, but they'll be helpful as soon as you start implementing them. So now in the months beforehand, during Newsmatch, and as well as when you're doing all other campaigning in the future. One of our favorite strategies to use here at the Hub is A/B testing. So testing and retesting and just re-messaging what it is that you're saying as much as possible. An example that I really like is one of our Hub orgs a few weeks ago. They were doing a campaign and they were trying to figure out, okay, we wrote this email, we wrote a long version, we wrote a short version. What do we do with this? Like, which do you think is better? And we're like, well, just, A/B test it, see how it works, see what your audience responds to the most. So they went ahead and did an A/B test, and they figured out that their audience responds to shorter emails a lot better. So now they know moving forward, like, we should do shorter emails. And is my earring tapping against the audio? Okay, awesome. I can just hear it in my ear. So they figured that out, and now they know what to do for the future. So a few things that you want to be testing, like them, they tested content length. You can also test out subject length. Who is the email coming from? Some people or some audiences prefer for it to come from like an official person, like the CEO or like the news editor. Some prefer for it to come from somebody that maybe they feel they can relate to more, like a reporter or the like communities manager or somebody like that. So testing out what the voice is and like who people are connecting to. And also send time, send day. These are all things that you can be experimenting with. And I know that not everybody is using the same email provider here, but pretty much every email provider has some way to do A/B testing, and they more than likely have documentation on this. So it shouldn't be too difficult to set up. But if you do have trouble, just reach out to them, and I'm sure that they will be happy to help you with A/B testing. And I really, really want to just like hone in on this like A/B testing thing, because the more connected you are with your audience, the more you understand what they respond to and what it is that they like and what voice they prefer, the more loyalty you'll build with them. So that is super important. And then next slide, please. A little bit of a housekeeping thing. Before Newsmatch, you want to be cleaning your list. Having inactive subscribers, it's not helping you at all. So you want to clean those people out, archive them, whatever it is that you're gonna do with them, but just like take them out because they can be messing up your metrics. They're just affecting the numbers that you're getting. They're affecting your deliverability. So you want to be cleaning that out, and you don't want these people to be costing you money. So this isn't something that you need to be worried about like every month. Just maybe set a time once a year that you're like, okay, this is list email cleaning month. So this is something that you want to be doing annually. So just a little housekeeping reminder. Next slide. So campaign constantly. Something that I get asked a lot from my newsrooms is like, why aren't we making money? And almost always the answer is because you need to campaign more. Like it is absolutely awesome to have recurring donors and to have those people who you know that you can depend on. But excuse me, you will be, it just happens. You will be losing some people just through the course of nature. And you also want to be, trying to get as much money as possible in order to hit your revenue goal. So while having those recurring donors is amazing and great, and we love those people, we also want to campaign in order to grow the number of donors that you do have and just be able to hit those metrics. So campaign all the time. Next slide. And I'm going to read this slide out loud because it is really, really important. If you offer a real value to your readers or your local community, which all of you do, there is no need to be shy about asking for support. So I completely understand that some people feel a little like nervous and uncomfortable and just maybe not used to the concept of having to ask people for money all the time. Like a lot of us have reporting backgrounds, like we're not used to having to like ask for money. But it's really important. And obviously, as you've already put in the legwork of doing other campaigns and telling them what your mission is, of having messaging all across your site, across your social media, anywhere and everywhere. You have told them, we are a nonprofit, we need money, and we are not sponsored by viewers like you. That's PBS in my brain, but we are, funded by our readers, funded by our community, and we need your support. So you've already told them this. They know it is okay to ask them for money. I promise it is okay. Campaign away without that worry. And the more you campaign, the less uncomfortable you'll feel with doing it in the future. So one campaigning tool that we absolutely adore at the Hub is having an automated welcome series. That word automated is like the chef's kiss, most important word, because it's great when you can just have something running in the background and not having to worry about it. So the welcome series, we suggest a series of about 6 to 9-ish emails where the first half is you introducing yourself to your audience, once again letting them know like, hey, we're a nonprofit, this is our mission, this is what we do. having a few emails from somebody who is getting a little bit more personal, from the CEO, the founder, reporter, whomever, and just like making that connection with your audience and, you know, kind of making them feel like you're their friend or you're their advocate or whatever vibe you're trying to give off, giving off that vibe during that first half of the series. And then during the second half of the series is when you are more, you know, blatantly asking them for money. So the first half is connection, the second half is donations. And this is really important because it not only effectively like onboards people when they subscribe, but it also primes them for donation asks in the future because they won't be surprised that you are asking. And with that, I will be throwing things over to my colleague Alma, who will talk about how to ask for those donations effectively within your newsletter.
Hello, everybody. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Alma, Senior Project Manager at the Hub. So I'm going to talk a little bit about different ways that you can campaign within your newsletter and just turn it into the best fundraising vehicle possible. So one thing we really love to do here at the Hub is put in these little call to action boxes, CTA boxes in someone's newsletter. And this is just something that, you know, we kind of try and make it stand out design wise from the rest of the newsletter so that it doesn't blend in. And it's just a way to kind of remind people that, hey, like you're reading something free. You're reading a free public service. You know, if you value this newsletter, please support it. You can see in this example, it says become a Voice of San Diego member today. These type of little call to actions are also great because you can really customize the language to whatever is going on in your newsroom, but specifically towards Newsmatch. So last year, I helped 2 of our organizations update their call to actions. So for Quota Story, we just said, you know, support our journalism today, and Newsmatch will match your contribution for double the impact. And we did the same for the Trace here, you know, really a nice little standout, double your impact, a quick little introduction to what's going there, and then a link to the donation page. This is something really great that you can put, oh, you're welcome for sharing yours, Gracie, Gracie from the Trace in the chat. But this is just something really nice that you can put into your newsletter. It's something that can give you passive income. You know, you put it in there and you kind of forget about it. Like I said, you do want it to stand out. So, you know, maybe every 6 weeks or so, go in and change the language. But right before Newsmatch, you can add in that language, and that can just be something really powerful for people to see day in and day out as they're opening their newsletter. Oh, next slide, please. With the newsletters, something that we've been experimenting with and really enjoying over the past year at the Hub is newsletter toppers. You know, there will always be those people who can suss out a marketing campaign. You know, they see that subject line and they say, nope, I'm moving on. But what you can do is get them with the newsletter topper. So this is basically, the idea is like a short little paragraph that's going to be shorter than a regular campaign. And it's just something that you put right at the top of your newsletter, you know, like, hey, I'm the reporter of this newsletter, or I'm the writer of this newsletter, you know, this is what we're doing. It's Newsmatch, you know, double your donations. It's just a nice way to kind of disrupt the flow of the regular newsletter. And then, you know, the people who are reading this newsletter day in and day out, who might not see those marketing campaigns, there's really no way they can avoid this. So that is just another really great way to get your campaign and your message out in front of people. And it has been one of the most effective strategies for Hub organizations, and newsletter toppers will be in the toolkit, I believe. So please, please, please take advantage of them as much as possible. Next up. So, you know, we always want to make sure that we are growing our donor base, but we also want to make sure that we're not just forgetting about the people who are already there. You know, it's easier to retain a donor who's already shown interest in you than to convince someone completely new to come and give you money. So we really suggest that you set up some automated renewal messaging for people. You know, here at the Hub, we kind of go on the assumption that, you know, people want to give to you. And if I've already given to you once, I probably want to give to you again. I just forgot that, you know, my year is up. So you need to be there to tell me. So we suggest setting up a series of renewal emails to lapsing one-time donors so you can keep that money flowing in. and also to try and convert them with this messaging to monthly as much as possible. This is a really great opportunity for you to explain to them, why monthly donations are so important and so much more helpful, than one-time donations. It really helps you to be able to have a budget. It helps you to accurately plan so that you can do more of the great journalism they're coming to you for. So, as Newsmatch is coming up, do a few emails specifically to maybe, people who are going to expire, or maybe people who have expired in the last 2 months or so, and just be like, hey, your expiration is coming up. You already expired, but we have this really great opportunity for your donation to go even further. So like, what do you say joining us again? You already did it once, kind of using that that language of bringing them back into the fold, so you can, get that double money that we love to see. All right, next up. And as I said before, it is easier to retain a donor than to get a new one. So renewal messaging, great, but you don't want the first time that you're like talking to your donors to be when you're asking them to give them money again, right? That's not polite. You want to make sure that, you're actually building a relationship with them and actually showing them that, hey, like, I care about you. I care that you've given us money, and like, look what we're doing with your hard-earned money. Look at the great journalism we're putting out. So we recommend sending out regular stewardship messaging. If you are a small org and it's a little bit hard for you to do this, don't feel like you have to send out something every single month. Monthly is great, but if you could just do like a quarterly report, a quarterly recap, thanks so much for your donation. Here's what we've been doing with it. Something like that, that's just reinforcing the fact that, we are a nonprofit. We are providing you with this public service. We do appreciate your money. And like, here's how we're putting it to good work. It's not just sitting in the bank collecting interest. So, as we're getting closer to Newsmatch, go ahead and tell your current members about that. This might prompt them to make an additional donation during the Newsmatch time. You already supported us once, you can support us again, and your donation will go even further. All right, next up. So we're going to talk a little bit about tailoring your approach and how you can really make Newsmatch customized to you. There are God knows how many organizations participating in Newsmatch, which is great to see, but you also want to make sure that your email pitches and what you are doing is standing out, among the crowd. So here are a few tips on how to do that. All right, first one. So the first one, as Stacy said before, is to customize your pitch. Again, send it from a person, not the organization. You really want to try and, hone in on that personal factor. The cool thing about a membership program is, it's not like a subscription where you're just buying something. You're really buying into a relationship, and really wanting to support a person or an organization. So you really want to try and, just make that as personal and connection building as much as possible. Next. So we only want you to link to the donation page. In your pitch, you should absolutely be telling and describing about the great journalism that you're doing. But once someone clicks on that story, they're out of the email and they might not forget to go back and read and donate. And now they're, off doing a million other things with their day. So, do your thing, definitely talk about the work you're doing. But at the end of the day, we really want to hone in on the donation link and really make that the focus of the email. Next, again, we want to keep our appeal short and straightforward. As we've said, this is the age of email. We're all bogged down with so many emails. So, we don't want to read a whole essay. I'm sure we can be short and sweet and really get to the point of the donation and the appeal. And then you can do the next two together because they kind of go hand in hand. And that is including a strong call to action and really emphasizing the urgency of Newsmatch. That'll be something that will be really great, especially as we get like closer and closer to the end of Newsmatch, reminding people, hey, like you only have a few more days left to be a part of this great thing. You only have a few more days left for your donation to go twice as far, really hammering in the urgency now. Like this isn't something we do all the time. This is now is the time. And just really getting people excited and wanting to support you. I think Christina had a toolkit update here, unless she had something in the chat, but it looks like, yeah, she said you will receive a series of customizable emails to help you run your campaign. So that'll be something really exciting that we haven't done in past news matches before. And I believe that's something that you'll be able to talk about even more in some of the office hours that Ian and Christina and Anne Marie are putting together. So please, please, please take advantage of that and take advantage of all these tips as well.
Christina, do you want to add anything about the toolkit here?
So I guess just for folks who are new to Newsmatch, every year our team puts together some resources to really help you get going and understand all the things that you can be doing to run, firing off all cylinders and running a strong Newsmatch campaign. There's going to be a lot of pieces that you can mix and match and really build to fit your own. So in addition to these, we call the NADLIN style type appeals, we'll have some newsletter toppers this year, the ones that Alma and Stacy shared. And then we'll also have some just outlines and prompts. If you feel like maybe this language may not fit your newsroom or you want to try something different, we'll have some guides to help you, come up with your pitch on your own. It'll also have some graphic assets as well as social media copy that you can use for Facebook and Twitter. So that will come out in early October. Stay tuned.
All righty, next up. So next, I just have a few examples of how hub organizations have really taken their campaigning to the next level and just really been creative in figuring out what works for them. So this is an example from one of our orgs, the Connecticut Mirror. Earlier this year, they did a 30-hour campaign called the Gavel Give, where they were trying to raise $30,000, and I think it was going to be matched, something like this. But I wanted to point out a few things that they did that really just helped elevate this campaign beyond just standard emails. So in the middle, you can see a little mark your calendar. This is something that they put in their newsletter in the days and the weeks leading up to the Gavel Give, mark your calendar. We're having this really great fundraising push in the next few weeks, in the next few days, just to kind of give your readers a tease, show them how excited you are for this, a really great way to tell them what's going to happen and why it's so important, so that when Newsmatch comes, they're ready to go. They're ready to input their credit card number and, give you that money. Another thing that I really liked that CT Mirror did is they took advantage of graphics. They put together these really great graphics that, this tells a story just by looking at it. I don't really even have to read it. I know, they want money and they're 50% of the way. So I need to get my card out so I can give them more and help them get to 100. And they actually sent out a few standalone emails just with this graphic on it, depending on where they were in their reach to 30,000. As Christina just said, the toolkit is going to come out with graphics. It's going to have Canva graphics, which is great because that's a super accessible tool, if you don't have a graphic designer or Illustrator or Photoshop or anything. So I would 100% take advantage of that. These visual cues are a really quick and easy way to help people understand what's going on. And, just add a little bit of fun, add a little bit of hype, a little bit of excitement to this. So I would definitely take advantage of all that you can in this toolkit. And then next up, I just have two examples here, again, of hub organizations that were kind of really creative with what they were doing in their campaigns. So the first example is from Mississippi Today. They had a spring membership drive, and something they did that I really like in this bluish teal color, they actually got testimonials from donors. So on our donation pages, we have an option for people to tell you why they donate. If you have something like that, pull a few really prominent, engaging quotes and, put them in an email. Who better to tell you why you should donate than someone who's already given money? So that's just something a little interesting and out of the box you can do. As also here on the right, we have an example from Sahan Journal, which is a small and scrappy org that we work with who consistently impresses me with the work they put out. I don't remember when this was, but they put together a campaign that was specifically geared towards recurring donors. And basically what they did, this is something so small but so interesting, is they decided to call these people Sahan sustainers. Give $5 a month and you can become a Sahan sustainer. To throw a little bit of psychology in there, people really love to, feel like they're part of a club. They love to have a name to something. They love to feel like they're part of something special. So, what can you do to make people feel special, to make them feel like they're really joining something by donating to you? Again, like we will always say, you do not have to do every single one of the things that we have put in this presentation. We understand that it can be a lot to go from 0 to 100, but take some time, maybe look back at this presentation and pick out a few things that are doable, maybe go from 0 to 50, 0 to 60. And again, all of this stuff is still going to be relevant after Newsmatch. It'll be relevant year over year, day after day. So, we really just want to give you the resources and, you just decide what you can do to make your Newsmatch as strong and successful as possible. That is all we have for you. So I think it is time for questions.
Thank you, Alma. We have a lot of questions, and considering the amount of time left, let's just go ahead and dive in. And to go chronologically, I think maybe we need to revisit the pop-up questions and discussion that was happening in the chat. So Nicole, do you want to chime in on that first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Emery. So I guess
actually, so sorry, just for the recording, let me clarify that there were some questions in the chat about should we do pop-ups or not, and the difference between pop-ups and overlays and inlines. So that's sort of the questioning going on in the chat.
Thanks so much, Emery. That was super helpful. So to clarify, yes, there are two avenues, pop-ups and no pop-ups. There are different ways that you can go about both of these options. And I definitely say that, as we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier, A/B testing is super important. The reason that I don't necessarily come out strong with pop-ups is because we know that it can take quite a bit away from user experience, and to the point where it can sometimes turn negative rather than positive. And I would say that that's something that you really need to be careful of and be mindful of, because essentially pop-ups can be very effective for capturing those email signups, but they can be the most annoying for readers to deal with. And sometimes it will cause readers to completely exit. So making sure you're just testing that out on your site first to better understand if readers are actually engaging or not. And I do believe I saw someone's comment in the thread or the chat that mentioned that sometimes users have pop-up blocks enabled on their desktop. And so that's also something to be mindful of. And so to then go to what I was speaking to earlier about the overlays. So if you're on desktop, there's something I guess you could consider this a pop-up or overlay, but just so that we're all on the same page, it's when you're on desktop and there's just a little banner at the bottom that pops up and covers part of your page. And some people consider that a pop-up, some people consider it an overlay. And so I think based off of kind of what you're thinking there, then it can be one or the other, but essentially it could also be called a toaster. So it's a unit that pops up at the bottom of the screen, and those can be bars at the bottom, and they work well on mobile or just essentially ones that are on desktop that don't take up the whole screen. And so I would definitely say that. And I mean, they're all also the interstitial units that are true, just like pop-ups in the middle of someone interacting with your page. I would say that if you do choose to go that route, some things that I would be mindful of are, how many minutes has a user been on your page? How many different pages has your user clicked on? Are you presenting that the second that they hit your site? Are you presenting that, 2 minutes after interaction? Are you presenting it on, a third channel that they've clicked on? So I would just say that there are definitely a few questions you want to keep in mind around reader behavior. And do you want to show them maybe on an exit as the reader is leaving? Also, page visits and that time on site and scroll depth, which we do actually have a tag for if you wanted to use. We have a scroll depth tag to see how far a user has gone down your page, and maybe only show them after the user has finished your article. And I would just say those are some of the things that I want to be mindful of. And also just the last thing is device too. So do you want different units for readers that are on desktop versus mobile? Because there are some units that have very different interactions when you're on desktop versus mobile, and some that are easily digestible for readers when you're on desktop. So I would just say get sophisticated with the targeting that you have as your approach. And you can always try a pop-up if that's something that you think your site will have a lot of conversion on, and then just test it and see if it's working for desktop versus mobile, and continue testing from there. All right, Anne Marie, I'll let you take on the next question.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple more technical questions, but these are about email or MailChimp. So Julie asks, what do we think about MailChimp's suggested send times for optimized opens?
I think it's certainly something that you can try. I have not used it that much. I know some of our other project managers have, so I can't really speak to it too much. I don't know, Stacy, you have more, if you've worked with it more.
Yes, I like to use their suggested send time, mostly because I'm like, well, the MailChimp gods have some kind of formula that they're using and I want to trust them. And I kind of use my judgment with it. I check to see what send time they're suggesting. If it seems like it's within a proper range, then I'll use it. But if it's something that's like totally out of left field, like a 9 p.m. Send time, then I don't usually use it. But an easy solution for that, which I talked about earlier, is A/B testing. So bringing that back, maybe you can A/B test and I believe it gives you the option in MailChimp to use their send time and also use your own send time, and maybe test it out for a few days and see which one works better.
Thank you. And then someone is interested in tips for how to exclude staff from your subscriber metrics. I think maybe if you have a small list and you want to exclude staff from your list, but if that's not your intention, please chime in.
Well, I'm not sure what type of segmenting capabilities your ESP might have, but if you're able to segment people out by email address, you could probably just create a segment. For us, it's alma@funjournalism.org. So I would just include everybody who has an @funjournalism.org email and take whatever number I have there.
Thank you, Alma. Let's see. Serena had a question about how we suggest constant or regular campaigning, and I think we probably answered that through the slides in terms of the welcome series, the call to action in your newsletter, the renewal messaging, and our suggestions for specific messaging around campaigns like Newsmatch. But does anyone have anything else to chime in here?
I would also suggest doing a birthday or anniversary campaign. It doesn't have to be, for the birthday one, it doesn't have to be something super long. If it's like, you turn 3, like 3 is cool, but 3 isn't like 5 or 1. So it can be like a shorter campaign versus an anniversary campaign, which would be longer. And also another suggestion is doing crowdfunding campaigns as things come up. If you're needing to hire a new person or launch a new product, that's a great time to do a campaign.
There was a question related to that, like just about fatigue, about like just bombarding your newsletter subscribers with asks and seeing your unsubscription numbers go down. And I'm just going to step in just because in my previous role worked at a public media station, and we were very sensitive to this. And one thing that helped manage some of our unsubscriptions was to be a little bit more thoughtful in our segmentation, so that like when we are sending really, really strong appeals, that people who currently support our newsroom are not getting those. The other thing to do is, if segmentation is just a heavy lift for your newsroom, is to always begin your asks with recognizing and thanking. If you've already given, like, thank you so much, like making sure that you're recognizing folks. The other approach that we took was educating our readers on understanding the importance of community support and like how our work only functions when people support us. And so I think when you're really being clear about your case for support, and you're thoughtful and creative and personable in your messaging, that can also help for people to just understand and exercise some patience with you. If you have some variety and creativity in your personality in your requests.
Yeah, I think that was great. I don't have anything else to follow up with.
Okay, thank you all. Megan asks, is it too early to talk about Newsmatch to readers or donors? And I think our answer would be no, but does anyone want to expand on that?
Just
I'd
to
say this is
echo-
also a good time to notify your larger supporters. Like, I would use this time to talk to your large donors and your major donors about Newsmatch this early on, just letting them know that it's coming, that you're building your community match fund, what you can start expressing to them what your goals are, because sometimes those large gifts you can seed so that week 1 or week 2, donors are making those large gifts, and they help to just give you momentum and talk about how far, like how far you're reaching, how close you are to your goal. Seed a few of those larger gifts. For your smaller donors, I think it is smarter to sort of wait closer to the campaign when they can like take the action. But large donors, I think it's really smart to seed them to like, could you give on November 1st or like that first day to just really kick us off. Asking them to do that now, makes a lot of sense.
I would also add, Courtney said it's a great time to start introducing the concept of community support. So if you haven't had any of these warm-up emails going out to your readers so far, I would say now is a great time to do that and just plant the seed and let them know this is what we've accomplished, this is what we want to do next year. We're a nonprofit. And even if you don't talk about the campaign specifically, it's also a good time to start drawing the connection between the movement of nonprofit news that's happening across the country and how, I'm not sure where you're based, Megan, but for example, if you're a hyper local news site or a local news site, it's a great way to contextualize how, your community is really lucky to have this type of public service journalism that so many other cities across the country have as well. So these are all the things that you should start planting and building the foundation before you really come in with those strong appeals in November.
Thank you both. I see a clarification from Danny in the chat about his staff segmenting question. It was about Google Analytics. So how to avoid counting staff views on their own website. And Tina or Nicole, do you have any insight here?
I actually haven't had this come up before for counting staff hits. I'm sure that there's a way that I could take a look into the Google Analytics and follow up. Yeah, I can absolutely do so, because I think that sometimes with our system, there might be a way to figure that out, Danny. So just let me take a look into it, unless Tina, you by chance happen to know.
Yeah, I don't know anything off the top of my head, but I will definitely follow up.
Thank you both. Let's see. Barry's asking, if our sign up box asks only for email address, what's the best path to gathering first and last names? Is this, Barry, I don't know if you can clarify, but if you decide after the fact that you want to add their first and last names to the email contact, is that the question that you're asking?
That is the question. I think the Alma spoke to like the idea of this welcome series set of emails, like where you are, like once someone signs up, there's an automated series of emails that introduces them to your organization. I think it's actually really smart for one of those emails to be, positioned around like, we want to learn more about you, and don't just ask for their first name and last name. Ask like what types of topics they're interested in. Ask where they live, honestly, because having their mailing address allows you to do well screenings later down the line. But you could have one of those welcome messages be tailored to like, tell us more about you so that, we can better serve you and it can power some of your segmentation. I wouldn't necessarily like what was recommended, have that be like on your initial form, just because it could deter people, but like through your welcome messaging, you could ask people to essentially like update their subscriber account so that you can engage with them better.
Going off of what Courtney is saying, you could also, for those questions that you have, just include a link to your audience survey. If you have an audience survey already, or if you want to create one, that way there's just like a constant influx of answers coming in.
Okay, thank you. Let's see how many of these remaining questions we can get to. What do you recommend when newsletter growth is lagging way behind your overall audience growth?
Yeah, so that's when I would really look at some of the resources that GNI put and we put, as far as making sure that you're really like transforming your website into a newsletter growth machine, like making sure you have CTAs in all the right places, making sure that you have compelling language. If you have any way to A/B test language, or maybe you can just kind of, change up your language every month or so and see what's the most compelling. But just making sure, that you have really easy ways for people to get on your newsletters. And also just surveying your newsletter products, do you have a daily newsletter, but you don't really have enough content for it? Maybe you need to go to a weekly newsletter, and that would be more appealing to your audience. So I would think it's a combination of, just really making sure that you have all of the right CTAs on your site, and just making sure that whatever your newsletter is, it's actually serving your audience.
Thank you, Alma. Okay, next, do we recommend special donor or member benefits like a donor-only website feature or other benefits like that? What are our thoughts?
We recommend donor benefits that you can easily fulfill. Here at the Hub, we found time and time again that, while benefits are great, it's nice to have a little swag sticker. At the heart of it, people are donating because they want to support your work. Whenever we survey orgs, that always outpaces benefits by far. If you're going to do benefits, especially if you're a small shop, don't go straight to having a million things. Whatever you're going to give your donors, make sure it's something that's not going to be a terrible lift for you, because the last thing you want is to promise people benefits, but then you're struggling to actually send them out. So I wouldn't really bother too much, but if you want to, do something that's going to be easy and manageable for you.
Thank you, Alma.
I would also say, like, think of premiums that are really unique to your organization. Like sometimes like a small convening with your editor is like, will do the job. You don't have to do things from scratch. Things that are really intimate and aligned with the thing that they care about is a great way to hit some low-hanging fruit.
Thanks, Courtney. I know that we are about up on the hour, so quickly I want to hop to this slide and give Tina a chance to talk about these GNI resources. Then we'll come back to finish up questions.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Anne Marie. Also, I want to drop, and speaking of audience surveys, I wanted to drop our survey for this workshop. So if you could just click that link that I've just dropped in the chat, and we'll also include it in any follow-ups. If you could just help us answer a couple questions on how you thought the workshop was today, that would be great. And then in terms of upcoming Google events that we wanted to share with you guys, so I'm coming from the Digital Growth Program, and we have two really great opportunities for small to mid-sized newsrooms. So we have our product workshops, which just launched on Monday. And so we have two more workshops coming up for that. That's on building product strategy into your newsrooms. And then second, we have a product lab, which is a free 14-week digital growth program where there'll be a cohort of 15 small to mid-sized news publishers. So I'm going to drop the links in the chat now for those applications, as well as the workshops. So we hope to see you at those future events.
Thanks, Tina.
Yes, at this time, we invite folks to sign off if they have to go. Again, the recording will be posted on Newsmatch HQ. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us and spending time with us today. Thanks to the folks at News Revenue Hub and Google News Initiative. Again, all these resources will be put online. For folks who want to stay, I do see some questions in the chat that I'm happy to stay and answer. But if folks need to go, I also just want to let them leave. And Daniel, I'll just quickly answer your question about the question about monetization. How do you ping people whose recurring donations have lapsed or whose cards have expired? I think this is really where it's important that your CRM and your donor platform is helping to help you flag when those expirations are happening. This is generally like a monthly process. Like if it's September 1st, you'll run your list of like which donors gave, have not, made a gift in the last prior to 12 to 15 months ago. And then who do we need to be contacting this September to renew their expired gift because they haven't given within 12 to 15 months. It's generally a monthly process. You generally will get that list from your donor platform or CRM. If your CRM can speak to your MailChimp, then that's great. But if not, yeah, you do need to load those lists manually and create those segments manually.
Actually, I think that might be the final question because Serena had another question that was answered in the chat, just defining products, journalism, your newsletters, articles, podcasts, et cetera. And that is a very helpful, clarifying question. So thank you for asking that.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much,
Appreciate your
everyone.
time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.